Iran is open for talks on its nuclear program. That's the message from the country's top nuclear negotiator, Ali Larijani. He's in Vienna meeting with the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Mohammed Al-Baradei.
Yes, it comes one day ahead of a UN Security Council deadline for Iran to stop enriching uranium or face further sanctions. Earlier, Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said his country will stop enriching uranium if Western countries are prepared to do the same.
There is no problem with your demand that we close our nuclear fuel production factories before negotiating with us. But what we say is if justice is to be performed, you must close your nuclear fuel factories too.
Well, let's get more on this now from our UN correspondent Mark Seddon. Mark, we heard there Ali Larijani calling for constructive dialogue, but this isn't anything new. We've heard him say this before. And is it actually going to make any difference ahead of that UN deadline tomorrow for Iran to stop enriching uranium?
Well, Marion, I don't think it's going to make a great deal of difference because the deadline will come and it will go, and Iran is still processing uranium. The Security Council resolution was quite clear about that. That had to stop. Otherwise, there would be more economic sanctions. But, you know, there will be countries on the Security Council, Russia and China in particular, who will say, well, look, the Iranians do seem to be serious about talking now. Isn't that the whole process? Isn't that what we were engaged in? And the point about the sanctions is that some countries believe they've actually pushed the Iranians to say that they're prepared to talk. Other countries, of course, the United States, some of the European countries, may well say, well, we've been talking before. But this is certainly the Iranians on the diplomatic offensive in advance of the publication of this report.
As you said there, some people believe that these sanctions, the limited sanctions slapped on Iran, have actually pushed them into developing their nuclear program further. But what are we likely to see tomorrow? Are we likely to see further sanctions?
No, I think that the sanctions are actually having an effect, and certainly they appear to be having an effect. Some commentators, some in Iran believe too, on public opinion there. So yes, sanctions are hurting the Iranian economy. There is pressure for the Iranians to negotiate, and the Iranians appear to be saying they're prepared to do it. Now, Dr. Al-Baradei has also said that, I mean, he hasn't actually given support to what Ali Larijani was saying, but he said, you know, his life would be a lot easier if other countries, and he had in mind the United Kingdom, weren't pushing ahead with their own nuclear modernisation. The United Kingdom is about to modernise its Trident, it's believed.
And are we likely to see some divisions tomorrow about what the next step forward is, given that we have seen in the past Russia and China to have advocated taking a softer stance on Iran?
Well, I think the Security Council were pretty united the last time around, and I suspect they will be again in terms of sticking to the economic sanctions package they already had and making sure that it works. There is some belief amongst Security Council members that it is working. So the idea that Iran could perhaps split the Security Council, it seems fairly unlikely, but also there's not going to be an immediate decision either. I mean, the Security Council is essentially going to wait and see, but there is the possibility of more and tougher sanctions. And I'm sure that the Russians and the Chinese, although having taken a softly approach before, are fairly united in wanting to sort of close down any potential for military conflict in the area.
Yes, well, we'll keep an eye on how things unfold into tomorrow. Mark Seddon there from New York. Thank you.
Police in India say 2 men wanted for questioning over the attack on the Samjhuta Express were involved in an argument with security guards before leaving the train. 2 of its carriages were subsequently engulfed in flames. Well,
some believe the attack was an attempt to undermine the peace process between the 2 countries. But Pakistan's foreign minister is in Delhi for talks with his Indian counterpart as planned. Rajesh Sundaram now reports from the Indian capital.
The Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Kasuri, is in India for talks with his Indian counterpart, Pranab Mukherjee. The talks start tomorrow and come just days after the blast on the Samjhuta Express that left about 68 people dead. And even as relatives of those who died in Monday morning's train blast near Panipat in India come to terms with their loss, there is hope that the meeting between the 2 top diplomats of the 2 countries would further the peace process. Panipat Government Hospital has become a makeshift morgue. Dozens of wooden coffins containing the remains of the train blast victims. Most are charred beyond recognition. They are known only by numbers. Unknown lady serial number 45 was someone's wife, sister, daughter. She and more than 65 other victims are taken inside to be embalmed by special army doctors. It may be a long time before they return to their families. The process of identifying bodies is a long and painful one. There are dozens of forms that need to be filled out, and it takes hours before the bodies are released. But those who are yet to identify their relatives, the wait could be even longer. DNA samples will have to be collected and sent to Delhi, and it could well take weeks before the bodies of their relatives are handed to them. Nabi Khan has not slept for days. He has identified 4 out of 6 family members who were on the train traveling back to Karachi. 2 others are still missing, unidentified.
The police are making us fill so many forms. I do not know when I will get the bodies. I am a poor man. The government should make arrangements for me to take the bodies back to Pakistan.
Officials say the delay is unavoidable. They want to make sure the families are given the right remains.
We are trying to ensure that minimum harassment is caused to the relations. But there are certain aspects, certain safeguards which we have to ensure.
At the site of the train blasts, forensic experts continue to search for evidence. It's a painstaking process, but they have already recovered some crucial items. The unexploded devices, up to 50 kerosene-filled plastic bottles, and a digital timer that failed. The police have released sketches of 2 suspects, drawings based on the evidence of eyewitnesses. They say the bombings were the work of a gang of 4 or 5. No arrests have been made, but police are questioning 35 people.
The eyewitness says that the suspects were in an argument with the security staff. They had some suspicious luggage with them, which they left in the train before getting off 20 kilometers from the blast site.
The Indian government has hastened the issuing of visas to relatives of the Pakistani victims. They will soon start arriving to claim their loved ones. But it could take days before they complete the formalities and can take them home for burial. The Indian agencies and the Indian police officials have also so far kept away from naming names. They have said that it is a terrorist organization. It is a group of about between 5 and 7 people who are responsible to execute this particular terrorist attack. But they have really stopped short of blaming Pakistan-based militant organizations or any groups for that matter. They say that this will come out only after the investigations, thorough investigations are done into this, the whole case.
Rajesh Sundaram reporting there from the Indian capital. Now, at least 12 people have been killed and dozens more wounded in mortar and rocket attacks in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu.
The city has come under almost daily attacks since government forces drove out the Islamic courts. As our correspondent Mohammed Ado explains, residents are now fleeing the city to escape the violence.
The attack overnight in Mogadishu was one of the worst ever since the government took control of the capital and routed out the Islamic courts fighters from Mogadishu. The attacks, according to sources, were triggered by raids carried out by remnants of the Islamic courts on the presidential palace, Villa Somalia, the port of Mogadishu, and barracks used by the Somali government and Ethiopian troops. According to witnesses in Mogadishu whom I spoke to earlier on, the Ethiopian forces and Somali government soldiers responded with heavy fire, also using shells and artillery against places in Mogadishu where they thought the attackers were throwing their mortars from. And this resulted in the deaths of more than 12 people, according to medical sources, and the injuries of 40 others, among them 7 children. This has created a lot of uncertainty and panic among Mogadishu's residents and has resulted in displacement from different parts of the capital.
Now then, the US Secretary of State has left Amman and is on her way to Germany. Condoleezza Rice was in the country for just a few hours for talks with King Abdullah of Jordan.
Now she'll be focusing on Wednesday's meeting with members of the Middle East Quartet in Berlin. Ayman Mohyeddin reports.
A day after leaving a Middle East summit without any concrete agreements, U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice arrived in Jordan for talks with King Abdullah.